All
That
right. So let's now get to know you a little bit. So who is Scott Margulis? Tell us, where was he? Where did he grow up? When was it that he started dabbling in entrepreneurial stuff?
hmm. So my dad was in the military, so I never lived anywhere longer than 4.5 years up until after I graduated from college. Um, so that took me, quite a few places, more than probably average, and I saw, a lot of different places in the world. And I think in the process of that, you get an idea of what's possible. I know a lot of people who've never been in an airplane. I know people who've never left the state where I live today. And that is almost mind-boggling to me. I mean, I kind of appreciate and embrace the simplicity of that, but
Yeah,
it gives you vision like this,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
and unless you're spending a lot of time, reading or doing something that enlarges your mindset. But as far as an entrepreneurial focus, I don't know that I really thought about that until I did it. So I started selling. I was on eBay in 2000, but not really using that as any part of my livelihood per se. Just a little bit here and there, dabbling. But in 2012 is when I started selling on Amazon, and that quickly became an important source of revenue. And it wasn't but 2 years in or less that I thought, hey, this is something that can pay the bills, and I was hooked. So I quit my day job 2 years after I started selling on Amazon, and then I've been, helping sellers since 2014, full time.
So I want to understand a couple of things there. So you traveling around because of your dad's, you know, military service. That means that you've had no friends for a long time.
Yeah, it's very interesting, actually. No, it's not that I didn't have friends. I just didn't have long-term friends. Like I don't have any friends from childhood. I don't know where any of those people are, you
That's
know?
what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's
no
interesting.
long-term friends. So how does that feel as someone who's gotten here in life and not having long-term friends?
Uh, I mean, part of it is you don't know what you're missing, right? It's like I don't know what to compare that to. I've had friends for 30 years, but it's not the same as having a childhood friend. Uh,
So
how does that affect you? I don't know.
so the reason I'm asking is how does that impact your entrepreneurial life?
Hmm, I have no idea. I mean, do you have some sort of a sense as to what that might mean?
So there is a term called third culture kid. You know what that means?
I have heard that.
Okay. You are a TCK for short. You are a TCK. TCK definition is people who have spent more of their adult years outside their parents' culture. In
Hmm.
other words, wherever your parents grew up and developed their culture, you have lived in places that were different than theirs.
Yeah, yeah. Now, as
So
far as like predominantly, or if there's some sort of percentage that qualifies you, I'm not sure if that would be the case. But certainly there would be some uh, semblance of truth to that.
So here is what happens to TCKs. TCKs often stay in one place for a small period of time and then they move on. So growing up as a kid, what happens is you are in a place and then you start school, you make a few friends, and then 2, 3, 4 years later, it's time to move on. Now you get put in another school, you make new set of friends. So every 3, 4, 5 years, whatever the case may be, you are getting a new set of friends. Well, guess what happens with friendship? Sometimes friends fight, right? So they have arguments. They get upset with each other. What happens in relationships when people get upset with each other? You deal with it, and then you find a resolution, and you make your peace, and then the friendship continues. Well, guess what? If you keep moving around, there is no need to put so much effort into it because you're going to lose them anyway. So, so this concept of third culture kid was developed by a psychologist in early 1980s. The reason was because this psychologist was a relationship expert, and then she started to notice the same kind of problems from her patients. And then when she started investigating to see what these people have in common, and it was simply they were all people who was born in one country but spent more of their years in another country or another location or whatever. This is especially the case for diplomats, kids, and others, because their language and religion, culture, everything is very different. So so they would develop these issues when they got into close relationships.
Right.
So that's where it came from, and I happen to be a third culture kid, so I know this. In fact, this was like a wake-up call for me. And the person I met, I didn't know anything about what TCK was. She was actually my dentist, and she said to me, "Oh, you have this, you have that," and I said, "Yeah." And she said, "You're a TCK." And I said, "What is a TCK?" It's a third culture kid. And she said, "Look it up. When you get home, look it up. I'm not telling you." So I came home and I looked it up. It's unbelievable. I found this page where 7 or 10 signs of a TCK.
Yeah.
And I had like the top 4 or 5, all of them, check. And you know what it was? The first one, you have multiple time zones set up on your computer because you have friends all over the world. Another one is you start to receive birthday greetings the day before your birthday. Because of time zone, you have people all over. So these were all things. And also it gets into the relationship mindset. And so it's an issue. But the point is how it impacts. This is my opinion now. So friends are our support system, right? So parents, of course, but at some point you graduate to friends. Without having these long-term relationships that you would consider true friends, what do you have as support system?
My cat?
You.
Yeah,
So you become self-reliant.
for sure.
And what is an entrepreneur if he or she is not self-reliant?
Yeah, that's pretty true.
So I think that's the impact. So in your case, your success, and in fact, I'm going to even go as far as saying this. You could have done all kinds of things. You could have become a full-service Amazon agency. You could have become PPC agency. You could have listing optimization expert, whatever. What you chose was one of the most difficult things because you have figured it out yourself about how to fix. And then one thing that you lacked was to have a support system, and you've become the support system for people who have the hardest situation that affects them the most.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.